Our next item is 6.6, our 10:30 item, presentation of work plan for the Office of Climate Resiliency, the Administrative Office.
Yes, thank you, Board. Excuse me, thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to introduce the county's first Chief Climate Resiliency Officer, Terry Logston, sorry, cold. As is such, it's a new program and it's a new position, and I ask that she present to your board and the community what this actually entails as provided by the grant-funded position. Thank you, Terry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Let me make sure that, since I'm sharing this via Zoom, it's not doing. Do you know how to switch the screens? Because I don't want that one showing, because that's got my notes. I want to see the notes. I will do it the other way. Apologize. Old school.
For some, it's still new school.
That's fine.
Yeah, you need to share it. Oh. It's not shared.
There it be.
There we go. Okay. Super. Thank you. Thank you. Again, my name is Terry Logston, and I am your new Chief Climate Resiliency Officer, and funded through the California Office of Emergency Services through a Prepare California Jumpstart Program grant. Apparently, there's going to be numerous CCRO positions throughout the state of California. It's my understanding that I was one of, if not the first, one of the first few hired and put in place throughout California. I understand there's at least 10 now. Soon there will be a cohort, and we'll get to meet and talk about it, and talk about the policies and procedures and the ideas, because each one is going to do something a little bit different that's tailored towards the needs of the county they represent. And so today I'm just going to go over the work plan from the grant application. And just to note that most of the photographs used in this presentation, I'm the photographer, a couple of them are not. But just kind of as a warning, there's going to be you're going to see some smoke columns, and there's no flames. But for those who are sensitive, I think because those images are really impactful for Lake County. So on this particular one, the very background, the orange, we all remember that orange day, September 9th, 2020. And then in the foreground is Middle Creek flooding off of Elk Mountain Road in 2012. And so the purpose of the grant is for me to serve as the missing link, a full-time staff dedicated to pulling together and effectively coordinating all local efforts to address and mitigate climate change conditions in Lake County, including working with the Risk Reduction Authority, the Office of Emergency Services, the Disaster Response and Recovery Unit, the Lake County Fire Safe Council, the Benefit Zone stakeholders of Buckingham and the Riviera, the Drought Task Force, the Comprehensive Drought Work Group, Tree Mortality Task Force, the Home Hardening Demonstration Initiative, and the North Shore Fire Fuels Crew, and the Soda Bay Corridor Evacuation Route Planning and Maintenance Project. And so that's just a number of the groups that I've already been participating in through the years. And so for me, I really look forward to being able to co-pollinate across all of those, the meetings and organizations. The top photo is the flooding in North Lakeport in 2017, and the bottom is from the Lake County Record B of the historic drought in 1977. You're looking at South Lakeport, kind of over or close from the Big Valley Rancheria into Lakeport, and you see how low the lake was. We dodged that one this year, so that's good. So let me go over the grant deliverables. This is a photo by Nathan DeHart, Cobb Mountain after the Valley Fire. So in the first 90 days, which began on December 5th, I'm tasked with collaborating with the cities of Clear Lake and Lakeport, tribal nations, county municipal advisory councils, and town halls to to introduce myself and raise awareness of the Office of Climate Resiliency, and to develop and then conduct initial community resilience surveys. And of course, starting in December and then meeting with the town halls and the municipal advisory councils is a little challenging because that's typically when everyone gets reseated. So that's going to probably be pushed out a little bit further than 90 days just because I'm not able to get on agendas. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And then to develop the survey, I've already gotten some initial questions. I had a meeting with Supervisor Sabatier, City Manager Alan Flora, and City Council Member Russ Kremer last week. And then I have reached out to the tribes, and I'll follow up with the tribal nations to understand what their major concerns are. And so to develop the survey. So far, most have mentioned evacuation routes, that we need to find out from the community if they know which route to take from their home. Do they have an alternate? Do you have your own transportation? And if you don't have your own transportation, do you have a plan to evacuate safely? Have you secured that? Defensible space, do you know what that is? Can you physically do the defensible space? Do you have someone who can help you? And how do you receive emergency information? So it's things like that that I'll be putting together and surveying. And then with the results from that survey, we'll work with these other groups to incorporate that into a plan of action. And so this was the Rocky Fire 2015, as seen from Clear Lake Oaks. I will also support the development and refinement of the Lake County Fire Safe Council, which I have been a participant in for many years. It's an ad hoc committee of the Board of Supervisors, facilitated by paid staff of the Lake County Resource Conservation District through funding from Title III funds through the Secure Rural Schools Act, which comes to the U.S. Forest Service. I will support the home hardening demonstration project led by North Coast Opportunities. NCO, is the Community Action Agency for Lake and Mendocino counties. And it's a grant-funded project, as you're aware. And it'll begin in the next month or so. NCO is finalizing the contracts for their contractors that they will work with. So that should be beginning shortly. And then, as I mentioned, with the results of the surveys, I'll analyze the results and work with partner agencies to help create action plans. This is a charred leaf that floated to my home in North Lakeport and landed on a squash plant from the Mendocino complex fire. So I've already reviewed. Part of it is I continue outreach through communities. And in the spirit of CMAT, if you recall, the Community Mitigation Assistance Team, which Lake County had the good fortune of being the first and so far the only county in the state of California to have this group come. And it's a nationwide group, and it's funded. They're mostly U.S. Forest Service partners. And they came and they worked with Lake County, and we met with them over the course of at least 2 weeks, and they put together a report that has a lot of good recommendations in it. And so when this grant was written, the intention is to use those recommendations from the CMAT, and in that same spirit, make recommendations for community resilience. And then to look for grants for all the partner agencies. It's not necessarily that I would write them all, but to help to work with the other agencies and the County of Lake to secure funding. So I've already reviewed, I scheduled an initial meeting and then a second meeting to discuss a Community Resource Center program grant through the CDFA with representatives from the county, cities of Lakeport and Clear Lake, NCO. It was actually the Lake County Fair who brought it to our attention, and they work with California Construction Authority, Lucerne Alpine Senior Center, and American Red Cross, and we met looked at the grant for a couple. We just couldn't make the turnaround because it's due within a month. So, and that's, well, we need grant writers. I also submitted an intent to apply for a climate adaptation planning grant through the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and attended a grant webinar. That particular grant is due March 31st. And so I'll be meeting with some department heads to see what's the best use of that funds. We would be at the first stage, and I think, or the first phase. They have it set out in 3 different phases of needs, and I think that we will be very competitive for those funds. And then I talked to Chief Mike Ciancio, and I'll set up a meeting after he makes a presentation to your board about the status of the North Shore Fire Fuels Crew project and how I can support him. And that's a view of the river fire from portion of the Mendocino complex as seen from Cobb, where I was evacuated to. So continue to support the implementation of the updated CWPP, or Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which hopefully will be before your board and approved in the next couple months. Develop and publicly present a comprehensive report of everything that I've been working on. And then adjust for future needs and just action plans based on the survey and continuing and ongoing feedback. And that runs through this is year 1, and it runs through December of this year. And then in years 2 through 5, the photo on the left is, which fire was that? That was still the Rocky Fire, and that's from Clear Lake Oaks, and that's where I learned the term capping out, when you get a pyrocumulonimbus that goes up so high that ice forms and collapses. Things that you learn in a fire-adapted or community. So years 2 through 5, I'll build on the work of the first year, continue doing surveys, continue reaching out to the municipal advisory councils and town halls. But I also reached out to the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative. And they created what you see on the right that's called the Pillars of Resistance. And they have 10 pillars that they worked with interested parties and community members to identify. It included the Forest Service, the California Tahoe Conservancy, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, Nature Conservancy. There was about 12 of them. And they worked on to accelerate restoration of forest and watershed resilience. And so I asked them for permission to utilize this. And I'm working with a graphic designer that is in-house here in the county, and I'm going to go out and get feedback on them to make these more reflective of Lake County. But I like the idea because everything is interconnected, and we need to look at each of these sections. And so as I work with partner organizations, for instance, economic diversity, well, we don't have a timber industry here in Lake County anymore. We used to, so that one will be changed. And so I've gotten feedback that will be incorporated in this, and I'll use that as the framework for the office and for the next few years. And then as I continue to seek funding to have this position in the office be ongoing. What I've really liked about this and finding out about their partners for TCSIs, because it reminded me of the 2 groups that we have working together in Lake County. The first one is the Blue Ribbon Committee for the Rehabilitation of Clear Lake, which I know that your board is aware of. And it is a collaborative group that's working to address an issue that was funded by AB 707, but it includes all seven federally recognized native sovereign nations, the Central Valley Control Board, UC Davis, the County of Lake County Economic Development Corporation, to represent local economic development, the Farm Bureau for Ag, the Resource Conservation District for Environment, and Lake County Special Districts representing all public water suppliers. And they have two subcommittees, a technical subcommittee and the socioeconomic subcommittee. And I hope to work with the socioeconomic subcommittee primarily in working on the pillars of resilience. And then the other collaboration, which I mentioned earlier, was CMAT, the Community Mitigation Assistance Team, and of course, the Risk Reduction Authority. The two entities in Lake County, as I mentioned, that are closest to the TSCI collaborative are the Blue Ribbon Committee and the Risk Reduction Authority. And the Risk Reduction Authority includes seated directors from fire protection districts, the county, both cities, most of the local tribal governments and public water purveyors. And one of the things that we found out going through the CMAT process was that, you know, there's a lot of responsibility placed on the RRA, the Risk Reduction Authority, and it needs to delegate some of the work to other partners, but it needs the other partners to be able to delegate to. They need to have so we're continuing looking for funding because it's such an amazing collaborative that we have. The Blue Ribbon Committee is funded. The Risk Reduction Authority needs additional funding. And so that's, you know, basically it. I'm not a climate expert. I'm not a climate scientist. I have been studying my former position as an environmental director for our tribe. I learned a lot about the current data, the current thinking of what's going on particularly in Lake County and in Northern California. As you know, though, Lake County is unique. We're a little isolated from everywhere, and we don't have data necessarily specific to Lake County, but we know the trends. We know that we're going to see extreme heat events. We know that we're going to have flooding and drought cycles. We know that we're going to have atmospheric rivers that bring, like in 2012, that one photo, we had 6 inches of rain in one day, which never happens, but it did. All the creeks rose and we had flooding, but then it didn't rain again for months. So we're going to go through these cycles. And so what I'm going to look for and what I will be as a resource for county departments and to partner agencies around Lake County is to pull them together to come up with solutions. Thank you.
Well, it's so exciting to have you here and to have this position be one of the first in the state. And I know I was excited for you to come on board. I know a lot of people were, and to have the work outlined before us kind of helps us understand what you can and can't do under this grant. And so every conversation that I have with you is, does this fall within the grant parameters? And that's something that all of us need to recognize going forward because it's very specific.
Yeah.
And I love that you use you're the missing link because it is what we have needed. We needed the connectivity within the county government and within the administrative office. So I'm just going to open it up to, Supervisor Sabatier.
Surprise. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation. A couple of things that I would like to better understand. So there's some things that you listed on there that seems to be some of the same things the RRA is already doing. Like I think the Best Fits grants is something that you kind of described as well, that you would be looking for grants and seeing who should be the ones to go for those grants. Is that going to be a replacement, a complement to, or how would that work? Because I just want to make sure we're not duplicating work that's already being done. So kind of trying to better understand the overlap between your work, what the RRA is doing. I'm assuming that you're going to be taking part in the RRA functions of their meetings, since it has a lot of information and a lot of activities that relate to what your grant position it requests to do. So just kind of getting a better understanding how that relationship is, and are you going to be taking some pieces away from them or complementing what they've already been doing?
That's a great question. The Best Fits Subcommittee of the Risk Reduction Authority doesn't at this moment exist because of funding challenges. NCO was providing services, and I'm not 100% sure on the background of that, but they won't be. The spreadsheet is still live, meaning it's a shared spreadsheet of all the participants can go in and look. So what's helpful with just that document to have been created is now you can put reminders to go look at that agency for funding. Also, the Westside Sacramento Integrated Regional Water Management Plan is facilitated by the Yolo County RCD, and they also send a grant spreadsheet, and they update once a month. So that's not work that I will be doing like for the RRA, but I have those two resources just that are, that other people are doing. So
Sounds like it would be complementary
Yes.
to what's already occurring then. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's not occurring, though.
Yeah, the Best Fits is not occurring.
The spreadsheet is there, but there are no meetings and there's no work occurring there.
Okay. Then, just on an add-on, I want to make sure, and I apologize if the conversation has already occurred, I don't know, but CSAC did start a program where they will help us with grant writing, and I would suspect that this type of grant that we would be looking for is exactly what CSAC might be eligible to help us with. I've never seen a finite description of, no, we won't help you with that, yes, we'll help you with that, but I would definitely say, let's look into that. That way they can complement the work you can get accomplished, so you don't have to sit there and just do grant writing after grant writing after grant writing. They're going to be there to support the cause, and I think that would be an amazing way to utilize their service. Because yes, grant funding is what's going to help us accomplish these goals. We do not have the bank account to be able to afford these types of projects, or many of these types of projects. So just wanted to alert you to that, just in case that wasn't known. I know in the grant, it does talk about specific census tracts, mainly the Clear Lake Oaks and the Clear Lake area, Spring Valley included. When you and I talked, which is why you and I talked, because of the fact that was in the grant, there was the idea of expanding that to the entire county. Is that a plan to do an amendment to the grant and get that approved by the state, or is that already approved by the state to be able to expand? I mean, I love it. Lake County as a whole needs the help. Love the fact that those census tracts were chosen. I appreciate that. But just wanted to make sure that there was approvals or a process to get those approvals to make those changes.
Yeah, great question. It actually is in the grant that way. The initial focus was to start there with, and I had the opportunity to speak with former CAO Hutchinson, who, wrote the grant to get a little clarification. The idea and the case that she made to Cal OES was the incidence of fire that has happened in those two census tracts, which were based on census tracts from 2010, so they no longer exist. But that's what they used. That's the mapping that they used, which, as you mentioned, it includes all of your supervisorial district, but in the narrative would also include Clear Lake Oaks and Spring Valley. And so with the intention that at the time the grant was written, those were the locations that had the most recent fires. And the issues that you have in any area of Lake County are similar when it comes to evacuation, ingress, egress, notification alerts, but some of them they're just slightly different. So I'm going to focus on those areas first, but extrapolate that and, to all of Lake County. And that can be done after the first 90 days.
Okay. Appreciate your presentation, the conversation that we had also, and looking forward to seeing the projects that you bring, because in my mind, your position and your goal is to obtain grant funding, obviously understand the projects that are needed, but it's also to manage those projects to ensure that they come to fruition, are successful, so that we can benefit entirely from the work that you're doing. So I'm looking forward to you bringing us those projects.
Thank you. It's just one point of clarification. It's not necessarily that I will bring the grants, but I will pull partners together. Like, for instance, the CDFA funding that we were looking at, with the fairgrounds being the anchor, through the two conversations we had, we decided what we need to do is have a forum to bring all the senior centers together to have the conversation about developing the idea of a community resilience center. Because we know, particularly after going through last summer, the extended heat waves and the housing stock that we have in Lake County in many areas, it doesn't have adequate insulation. They don't have adequate cooling. They don't have air conditioning or evaporative cooling adequate, particularly if there's a fire at the same time. And so the state in many areas, in many grant fundings, wants to see local government set up and operate cooling centers during the summer and warming centers during the winter, not necessarily for people who are unhoused, but for people who don't live in adequate housing.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Simon?
Excited to have you on board, Terry, and fill in this position. We'll just follow up on the discussions on countywide. When the Jumpstart program first came out, correct, we had the initial conversations with Callaway, or can we apply for this? Because it was just in the one designated area. They did come back and say, yeah, you can make this all county, because we want to make sure it was benefiting everybody that was affected by the fires. So I think if there needs to be any modifications, we can do that. But the reason we applied for the entire program was because they said, yes, for Lake County, we're going to allow you guys to kind of open it up. So we appreciated that kind of bend for us, and, that's what created it. Supervisor Sabatier brought it up too, the new CSAC grant writing program. I don't know how that works, but I really am excited about having you to kind of focus and make that gap and say, hey, listen, my board this is what Lake County wants to do, and this is how we're going to move forward. So I don't know if it needs to be an official request from the board, but if that comes to this, please, bring it to us. And okay, says no, so excellent. Just make sure that they know that we have someone in place to help move those things forward is so important. So I'm excited to see that you'll be going out to all the advisory committee or advisory councils for the board. And you're right, everybody's just getting reseated right now. We just had elections, so that'll be great as we move forward. Kind of has been the missing cog. How do we communicate with everybody doing the work that's being done? So excited to have you here to be kind of that, that final cog in the wheel to continue moving forward. So we got 5 years of work to do. And being resilient is always something that Lake County's good at, but really focusing on those dollars to continue to bring those things in. I think some of the pilot programs we have started here are going to be phenomenal. The home hardening programs for Lake County, the entire county, once we're over the first initial steps, but also the ingress and egress. And there's a lot of different issues that we need to be dealing with. Obviously, one we're going to talk about later on today, getting our creeks cleared out from gravel, from overgrowths, for some other stuff. Those are all resiliency conversation that we need to have down the road to make sure that the waters that are going to flow are unimpeded and gives us opportunities to continue that. So I think, there's some great conversations that are going to be happening. So I'm excited about it, but I think getting that CSAC grant writer support is going to be huge for us moving forward. There's one grant, obviously, I know we've been talking about the Risk Reduction Authority, the FEMA BRIC grant, Building Resilience in Communities. We haven't gone for that one yet, but I think we're getting close to be able, some agency in Lake County, if not the county, being able to move forward with that. So we're moving in the right direction. So appreciate it and here to support as much as possible. And like I said, communication is the number one thing. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And one of the examples that we really need is to continue to look for that grant or those grants that will help us develop our climate action plan, which obviously is not a grant or a project that you're going to carry, but you're going to support our other departments and making sure that we can have that critical work done.
Exactly.
Okay, so I don't see any, Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just a real quick question/comment. And I guess resilience and sustainability could be interchangeable, but I don't know if that's entirely accurate in this context. But on the sustainability stuff, if you take a look at all these bullet points, a lot of them involve land use and water use. And it's not probably within the four corners of your grant to talk about, but there may be things in our general plan, our land use element, water use and stuff like that, that deserves a fresh look. So it can't be all grants all the time. There may be some fundamental policies that the county has that we need to look inward and kind of kick the tires on some of our old assumptions in the general plan and maybe update it. You mentioned the forest resilience may need to get changed out. It's like, no, we actually have forests. I wanted to mention native oak woodlands and chaparral as being so critical to our county, and sustainability would certainly involve having a better understanding of what we can do to sustain those woodland communities against fire risk, development pressure, what have you. So I don't want to put anyone on the spot because, again, I don't know the four corners of the grant, but I do see opportunity as your job unfolds to maybe find spots in our general plan and our land use policies, our water use policies that need improvement. Our shoreline ordinance would be one example. There'll be other examples that may be discussed this afternoon. So again, you're just one person and you're going to be working super hard, and a lot of that is focused on grants and stuff like that. But I just hope the grant will allow you and others in the county to consider more systemic changes if they're needed, like at the general plan level, for example. And that's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think that it does in some, like specifically, it says to assist in the hazardous mitigation plan update. And so one thing that I have worked with OES just already is for each of the climate categories in the HMP draft is to tie it to projected climate impacts that we know or believe are going to happen in Lake County. And so how that is tied with each of those areas. So I've already made those suggestions and will continue as they go through the process. So I anticipate when the CDD department, undergoes a planning process, typically you're pulling together some group of citizens or the public to talk about things or to review things to get updates. I will be involved. So thank you.
Yeah. And it was the timber industry. We have the forest lands, but it's the timber industry under economic development. But that's an opportunity for biomass and trying to figure out how we manage all of that material.
All of that, yes.
Okay, so I will open it up for public comment. Anyone in the chambers or on Zoom?
Todd Metcalf has a hand up.
Okay. Director
Yes,
Metcalf.
and the host won't. The host has prohibited me from showing myself for some reason, which is probably a good thing. But Terry, welcome. I just want to say I appreciate what Supervisor Green said about we need to look inward. Terry, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. I'm with Behavioral Health Services, and in the past, when we've had heat waves and cold snaps, we've opened up some of our facilities as, a warming and cooling facility. And if you stay tuned into the Board of Supervisors meeting today, I don't know when the heck it's going to be heard, but we're actually bringing something to the board about opening a warming shelter. So I just want to let you know that I would like to work with you in the future in these types of activities and operations. Now, there we go. I do actually exist. So I just wanted to let you know who I am and kind of what we do, and that we had been actively involved in disaster and emergency operations. Before I came to behavioral services, I worked at social services, so I'm very, very familiar with the needs of our community, and just kind of wanted to just throw it out there that I'm here to assist and help, and we do need to collaborate. Here at Behavioral Services, we serve, obviously a very vulnerable population, and so when disaster strikes, we do whatever we can to help those folks. So just wanted to welcome you. We're very excited about this. Appreciate the presentation, and I'm sure you'll know where to find me.
Thank you. I look forward to setting up a meeting to talk. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Terry.
Okay, do we have anybody else? Anyone in the Zoom?
No other hands on Zoom.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for any final comments, but this is a no action item.
Just a final question. You said in December we'll be getting a further presentation?
Yeah, every year you'll get an annual presentation on the work, the recommendations. If there's any plans that the partner agencies, and where they are that I can report on their behalf, every year you'll get a report.
So basically, your year is July to June, but then you'll coordinate all of the information of everything you've done and then present to us at a later time?
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and there's very strict reporting requirements with the grant.
There we are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Terry.